Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Toni, and this is Sienna, my oldest, and we are here to talk about books. We love books, and we like doing these book reviews of what we read this month, and we haven't done one in a couple months. So today is going to catch you guys all up on what we've been reading, which hasn't been a ton, but we have some stuff that we read, and we're going to share with you if they're good or not. And the cool part is all the books that we share about are good, clean, either Christian books or clean books. And that is really helpful to me as a mom because I always want to find good, clean books. So I hope that that's helpful for you guys. I know a lot of you guys really like these videos. So you know that we're not going to be sharing garbage on here. We only share good books. So we are really excited to share with you guys what we read. So if you want to hear what we read, stay tuned. So we're going to share with you guys what we read. First thing that's really exciting, we're going to have a giveaway.
Wow.
So this company called the Good Book Company sent me a book called The Songs of a Warrior by Katie Morgan. And the cool part is they sent me 2 books. So one for me and my family and one for you guys. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it and then I'm going to do a giveaway at the end of the video. Anybody like getting free books? I like free books. Do you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're always excited about free books. So the cool part is this is a Saul and David retelling. Now, we love retellings, but I don't think I've ever seen a kid's book retelling. I don't know. I mean, I guess you've seen like little like board books that are Jonah and the Whale or things like that. But this is a middle grade fiction retelling of David and Saul. And for the most part, we're probably all pretty familiar with that story. I love that idea. What was the one that you read, Colin Cassette? That was a retelling of like the 10 plagues. Yeah. She's read a couple of those, and those are adult fiction, but this is middle grade fiction. So I was really excited about that for the middle grade, and I've enjoyed this book, and I'm even going to have her read it because I think it'd be fun for anybody. But it's just this story about Saul and David and all the adventures with David and Goliath and David becoming king and Saul being king, difficult things, and it's intense. Fun story for little ones to see that Bible story really come alive. And I love doing that. So this is really fun. So if you want to win this book, this one right here, never been opened, I will mail this to you guys this week. So we need to come up with something cool. What should they have to do?
2 hours later.
So here's what we decided. If you want to enter into this giveaway, make sure you subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell. Make sure you like this video. And I want you to share in the comments what your biggest adventure has been so far in life. Whether you went somewhere or giving birth to a child. It could be anything, whatever your biggest adventure was. We just went on a big adventure out west. That would probably be mine because it was probably the coolest thing we've done. Have you had a bigger adventure? What would you say yours is?
No, that was probably it.
Their biggest adventure. Yeah. So that was really cool. And one of the books I'm sharing about in a little bit has to do with that, which I'm really excited about. So let me know what your biggest adventure was. You also need to make sure in your comment you leave your email address because otherwise I can't get a hold of you. I know some people have a problem with leaving their email address. So if you want to private message it to me, I've got my email is ourthriftyhomeschool@gmail.com. So just if you want to send me an email, or you could head over to Instagram and message me on there. Just make sure I have your contact information because if we draw your name and I have no way to contact you, we got to move on to the next person. And that would be really sad, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. So sad. Okay, so I hope you win. Yay, somebody will win. All right. So let's see. Now we're going to move on to some other books. You've got 3 and I've got 3 to talk about. I'm going to have Sienna go first. So Sienna, share with us the first one that you read or one of the ones that you read.
Yeah.
And did you read all 3 of these on our trip?
Yes.
Okay.
These are all from the trip.
Because we had a lot of time in the car.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one is 2 Reasons to Run by Colleen Coble. And it's a murder mystery. And it's Christian. So there is some faith-based stuff in the book. I love this author, by the way.
We love her.
Yeah, I've
read
read
a bunch of her stuff.
Probably all of her books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super intense, fun author.
So this one is about like a murder that happened at an oil facility.
Refinery. Yeah.
Something like that has to do with oil. And it's about this police chief, that's the main girl of the story, who finds the body, and basically the whole murder leads to something different in the oil facility.
Like there's a mystery, like a mystery happening
leads to
there.
Something else.
A big mystery that happened there.
Yes.
Okay.
So I liked it.
So were they linked? Or you're not, probably can't tell us that, if the murder and
I
the
won't
mystery
tell
are
you
linked.
that.
Okay. But it was really good and intense, and you loved it? Okay, so what about, how many stars?
Probably 3.75.
Ooh, okay. Well, 3.75 sounds good. Okay, so that was a fun one. Okay, I did read a couple grown-up books, but the second one that I'm talking about is not a grown-up book. But I read this with my son this month, and I have to share with you guys about it because it was so sweet. This is called He Is Always With Me, and it's written by Laval Alsbrooks Jr. And I thought this was so sweet. This was actually sent to me by the author to check out with my son. And when he told me when the author sent me a message and told me what it was about, I was like, oh, this would actually be perfect because it's about a storm. And it's about this little boy and his parents, and he goes through this storm that scares him. The cool part is I have 2 kids that are terrified of storms, like majorly terrified. Not this one, my 2 little ones. And it's funny because we just had a tornado warning last night, and we were in the basement for at least an hour hanging out. We get tornado warnings fairly often, this time of year, and they get very panicky and scared. And my son wants to be this big, brave boy, but it is hard because he's really scared of like, what about this? What if this happens? And da-da-da. And they've gotten a lot better. But it was neat to read him this story because I felt like he was in this. Because this little boy is scared of a storm that's happening. The pictures are really pretty too. The dad talks to him, and they have this song that they sing that helps the little boy. See, there's the little boy and his dad. And the neat thing is, you guys will have to, here's a picture of the author. So it's actually like, it's based on his family, which I think is really sweet. The dad just like comforts him and tells him about all these different things in his life that God's with you. And it's just really neat because God is with us in all the hard times. And I thought it was perfect. So my son is 7 and he loved it. We read it together. It's got this like kind of rhymey tone to it. And I just love the message behind it. It's also, it's neat because it's an interracial couple. And it kind of opens up kids to seeing that that's normal and that's cool. So I just loved it. I thought it was really sweet. So I don't have one of these to give away to you guys, but I will link it in the description box below. So if you want to get it for your kid, especially, I think it'd be fun for any kid to read, but especially if your kid does struggle with fear or anxiety, this is a really fun way to just remember God is with you. There's like some of that stuff in here that I feel like if you read it enough, you could kind of say it together when they're going through a hard time. And it was just really precious. I just had to share that with you guys. So now it is Sienna's turn. My hair's a little crazy today.
So who do I hand it to you?
I will hold it for you. Okay, so her second book.
Okay, so this is called How to Kiss Your Best Friend by Jenny Proctor. So this isn't a Christian book. It's just like a clean, wholesome romance. Like, it's not, there's no faith-based stuff, but it's completely clean.
Which I was kind of surprised because when she's like, "Oh, I'm so excited." Where did you buy this? Where did you
I
get
got it
this?
for my birthday from my aunt.
Oh yeah. So she had asked for it, and I'm like, "How to Kiss Your Best Friend? This is probably not going to be clean." She's like, "No, Mom, it is. The reviews are good." And so she said there was nothing.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's kissing,
like,
but not
there's
like
kissing, but not like
a
descriptive.
lot of describing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's very clean. And it's just like a fun romance about these 2 teens.
Are they?
I guess.
Or young adults or something?
Yeah, young adults, I guess, that
Okay.
used to go to high school together. And they just like fall in love. They accidentally start hanging out. They have a friend that always hangs out with them.
Like a mutual friend.
Yeah, so like
like
they're
a third wheel.
like kind of
Yeah.
wanting to date, but they're always just like hanging out for fun.
Okay.
So it was just like super fun, and it
Aw.
entertained me. And yeah, I liked
They're really
it.
cute. Awesome. So they had met in high school and they reconnected later.
Yes.
Okay, so they're probably in their 20s or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a sweet story. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So what do you rate this one?
Probably a 4-star.
Okay, so even more than the Colin Coble.
Mhm.
If you're in the mood for a romance.
Yeah.
Cool. So on our trip, my husband actually found this on a one of those what are they called? Book,
Like
not a book drop. Like a
Free
little free
book.
library. We were somewhere, I don't remember, Idaho, somewhere, on our way home. And we went inside to use the bathroom at the gas station, and my husband found a little free library outside and saw this book. And he got it for himself, and he was going to read on the way home. It's a pretty small book, but he didn't want to read it right then. And I was like, well, I'll read it. It looks really quick. And it looked really good. So it's called A Child Called It, One Child's Courage to Survive by David Peltzer. Now, it is not something I would want her to read. It was super heavy. It did have some language in it because of all the trauma this kid went through. He shared real life stories. I don't usually read books with language, but this was different because it was a nonfiction book about his life. It was probably the saddest book I've ever read in my entire life. I struggled. I wanted to finish it and I wanted to read it and really understand his life. But if you do not have a strong stomach, or if you can't handle hearing about abuse, you probably shouldn't read this. So that's why I wouldn't want her to read it, or any of my kids. But it really like touched my heart to hear what this kid went through. Being called it by your mom, who really has no love for you at all. And he was very terribly abused. Some of the stuff, honestly, that he went through, that he shared, it made me sick to my stomach as I was hearing about it. I've never reacted to a book that way, feeling like physically ill, hearing what this sweet little kid went through. It was so awful. But you have to really, I don't know, you got to read stuff. You've got to read stuff like this to really maybe get a better understanding for like foster kids and for troubled kids and stuff like that. We have some foster kids in our extended family, and to really understand, they may not have been abused to this extent, but like if our life situation was different, this made me be like, man, if we didn't have so much difficult things going on with health things and stuff, I would love to help out a foster kid and take in. I love that people do that. If you are a foster parent, I think it's awesome if you're doing it the right way, because I think he goes on, I think there's 2 or 3 other books that go on in his life in the next stage, and then as a teenager and stuff. And I'm pretty sure the one about one of his foster homes, he was abused there too. So it's so sad and terrible what these kids go through. But man, this is a good eye opener. So if you think you could handle it, this was an amazing book. I would rate this a 5-star book, but with a warning about how difficult it was to read. It was difficult, and it wasn't something I'd want my kid to read, but it's real life. It's what the author, this guy right here, that's what he went through. So anyway, it was a really good, sad book. So that's my story. Okay, your turn.
Okay.
I've never heard of this one before.
Yeah. This book is called If I Live by Terry Blackstock. This is the 3rd book in the If I Run series.
She finally read the whole series.
I don't know why I waited so long.
Because you loved the 1st and 2nd book, and then you have to be in the mood for it, I guess.
This is actually my all-time favorite trilogy that I've ever read.
Me too.
Ever.
What about you guys?
So good.
Since she's talked about this on here, because I read this years ago, and I've talked about it on here, but since she's read it more recently, a bunch of you guys have read If I Run and If I Live and If I Am Found. I think I say them in the wrong order, but by Terry Blackstock. Anyway, a bunch of you guys have read it and said how much you loved it. So if you have not jumped on the cool If I Run train, do it. Okay, talk about this book. What'd you think?
So it's about this girl that thinks she's going to get blamed for a murder that she found the body to. It's her friend. So the whole series, she's running away from the police. She's getting new identities and always covering up stuff. Like she didn't actually murder the person. She's actually a good person, but she's running away from the police. And
she's being framed. She thinks she's being framed or something, right?
That's what she thinks. Well, she is.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is being framed.
Yeah.
And since this was the last book, it's her finally getting the truth out, people actually believing her about who the real murderer is. And is it by the 1st or 2nd book that you do find out kind of who the real murderer is? So the whole time it's really edge of your seat because you know who the real murderer is, and she is acting
coming after her, right?
Yeah, coming after her and acting he's really framing her.
Yeah.
So it was really good, and at the end of the story, she gets reunited with her family after I wonder how long she was
I
gone.
don't know. I'm not
Like,
sure.
Maybe
It's been
a couple
months.
years?
At least many months to a year. I don't know. She was gone for a long time.
A really long time.
Yeah.
So
Super good. Super good.
amazing.
So it was worth reading the entire trilogy. So what did you rate this one?
A 5-star.
Oh, so that's pretty high for you.
Yeah.
So those are the other two. If I Run, If I'm Found, and then If I Live is the last one. But yeah, it's super good. I think we own all three now.
Yeah.
Or do we not have If I Run?
We don't have the first one, and the second book, I got like water all over it, so it's not really readable anymore. Speaking
of which, I will tell you guys this. I was going to read, I told you guys right before we went on a trip that I was going to read The Oath by Frank Peretti. I was so excited about it. So I took it on my trip. It's a big honking book. So when you're going on a trip for 3 weeks, you're have to put a lot of thought into it. Like we were like, should we bring this book? Or you don't want to bring library books, first of all. But like this one's really heavy and you want to try to make space. Anyway, I brought it. I'm like, I'm excited. A bunch of you guys were going to read it too. And I think it was early on. Day 2, maybe?
No, not day 2.
Was it later?
Like maybe day 5.
Maybe day 5. So if I was responsible, it wasn't that late.
We
because I could have read the book by then. Were we?
Yeah.
That's not day 5.
Yes, we were in Colorado in the mountains.
Okay, maybe it was.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd read a chunk of it, but my son threw up all over it. So gross. And the only time in the whole trip, I guess I should have given you a warning about that. The whole time in the whole trip, like nobody else threw up. And we did windy roads and all that stuff. Anyway, Dunkin' Donuts, fancy sugary drink was, I think, the culprit. But
in the mountains.
In the windy mountains of Colorado. But like all over my book. And you can imagine the smell. Okay, we won't talk about it anymore. I stopped reading it. Okay, so, and I actually, every time we went to a thrift store, I'm like, maybe we'll find it in here. And then I didn't find it. So any of you that read it, please let me know how it went. I will try to read it, but I just couldn't because, yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to my next one. So the last one that I read, I'll put right here, is called Death in Yellowstone, Accidents and Foolhardiness in the First National Park. And this was by Lee Whittlesey. Now, this was amazing. So I didn't read any happy books. All mine were kind of heavy. But I love this kind of thing. I love, like, my favorite show for years has been Dateline. I love to watch Dateline. Yeah, she's becoming like me. Dateline, 48 Hours. Books like If I'm Found from Terry Blackstock. So I love that kind of thing. So one of the Airbnbs we stayed at had this book. And we were there for 3 nights or something. And I am not a fast reader. But I was like, oh, I want to read this. Like, this sounds so good. And we were at Yellowstone. Like, that's where we were going that week. And so anyway, I read it any moment I had in my free time. And it was so good. And it's just like all these different stories of deaths. And like some were just accidents. But I think most were deaths in Yellowstone National Park. And it was crazy because we went through and saw the hot springs, which I don't even think I realized when we were there. I didn't know a lot about hot springs because I know there's some that you can swim in, but these you can't. And I didn't know how dangerous those were until after I read this book. And after I read the book, I'm like, man, if I read this book before we went to Yellowstone, I don't think I would have let my son Jonah out of my sight.
Yeah.
Because he was further ahead and I don't think I really understood the danger. But there are people who have died like 3rd degree, 1st degree. Which one's worse? 1st degree burns? I don't know.
No, 3rd degree.
Is 3rd degree worse? Like crazy burns all over their body from falling in these hot springs, or their dog would jump in and they would chase after their dog and like their clothes would melt off. I won't go too gross into it in case some of you guys don't like that kind of thing, but oh my word, it was crazy. But it listed like how many of those things happened. It talked about drownings. It talked about falling off a cliff and like probably some maulings. How do you say that? Maul, like to be mauled by an animal. Maulings. That sounds really weird. But some maulings from animals. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, a guy tried to like jump on a bison or something.
Yeah.
And like he got eaten by the bison.
That's the foolhardiness, the dum-dums that did stuff like that. But yeah, there's some people that got too dangerously close to animals. Like it talked about and this goes back super far, like like before Yellowstone was a real, park with it's got pathways like where you stay on the path and you walk on these bridges and things around where the animals are and around where the hot springs are and stuff like that. But this talks about back when there were no paths. So like back, I don't know what it was, 1910 or maybe earlier, probably 1800s or something, when people went through and like they didn't know what was happening, or somebody would camp there and in the middle of the night they'd be like walking and accidentally fall into a hot spring. Anyway, the hot springs was the craziest part, but it was really interesting. So especially if you've been to Yellowstone, you've got to read this book. And I read the first edition, so it was like an older edition of it, and they have a new one that probably is more updated with other stuff, but it was so good, and it was the fastest I've ever read a book. She was like shocked when I'm like, I finished it. She's like, what? Because I had to finish it before we left, and we were leaving like the next day, so I stayed up late and finished it one night. So
I read a little bit of it.
And, yeah, you read the hot springs part.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. Yeah. It was so good. Okay. So if you like that kind of thing, super good book. Love it. I would give it a 5-star. It was really interesting. Okay. Do you have something else?
Nope, that's it.
So that's it. So we didn't read loads of books, but is that a surprise? No. But that's what we read. So don't forget about the giveaway. If you want to be given this book, and like I said, this could be a fun family read aloud if you don't have a middle schooler, or what do you call it? Not middle school, middle grade?
Yeah.
Like a middle grade, whatever that is, 4th to whatever. The cool part is if you want to do this as a family, in the back of this book, it has a book club discussion guide, and it has a clip from the next book, but it says it's got extended notes section pointing the readers to the Bible passages so that, it's based off of true Bible stories, historical details, all that. Bible reading plan to follow the story that you just read, and a book club discussion guide. So it'd be fun to do as a family, or to just give to a kid to read, because I'm going to assign this, especially I think I'm going to assign this for my 11th grader. I'm going to assign this for my 12-year-old, my 7th grader coming up, and probably my 5th grader. I think I'm going to make all my girls read this year because it was really fun. So don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to leave us a comment about your favorite, biggest adventure that you've been on. And it could be walking to the mailbox. If that's all you've done, then that's fine, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. We all have different adventures. Anything else to share? Thanks for being here with us. Okay, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.